Hello, happy new year, good afternoon, or good evening, maybe even good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Scott Pastel, and I'm the VP of Property Management at Marsha Reddick Real Estate. Very happy to have you on our presentation today. I also have a very important speaker joining me today, Emily Sanders, our Regional Property Manager. You'll be hearing from both of us. So thanks again for joining. You can see the title that we've created here is How and Why to Hire a Professional Property Manager, with an emphasis on the word professional. So part of our presentation, I'm going to be explaining what a professional property manager is, what separates a professional property manager, say, from a non-professional property manager, duties, responsibilities, how to locate, find a good property manager, and then why a property manager is so beneficial in so many ways, to keep you out of liability, to keep your protecting your wealth, to increase your bottom line return, and to allow you to focus on the things that you enjoy doing, most in life, and the things that maybe you're best at. So thanks again for joining us here. For those of you that are new to Marsha Reddick Real Estate, I would like to just take a second to explain what Marsha Reddick Real Estate is. So you can see in our logo, we have 3 different departments. Marsha Reddick Real Estate is a brokerage. We specialize in residential real estate, typically 1 to about 25 units. We do both owner-occupied sales and investment property sales. What we're most well known for in our niche is investment property. That's where our property management comes in. Right now, today, Marsha Reddick manages just around 2,000 doors in 5 different states. We'll be explaining to you guys exactly where our markets are, where we manage properties, and even showing some examples. We've got our property management department, and then lastly, also our private lending department. So Marsha Reddick Real Estate is also a licensed private money lender. We originate short-term and long-term loans for borrowers who are either having a tough time getting qualified, maybe looking for bridge loans, short-term fix and flip loans, or even long-term loans. If you're using a LLC, or you're purchasing with a self-directed retirement account, then you might find yourself looking to borrow private money. Of course, we're going to focus on our property management department on today's presentation. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick background on myself. I started working at Marsha Reddick Real Estate 17 years ago, so it'll be 17 years this February, coming up just less than a month away. My day job at Marsha Reddick is the VP of Real Estate and Property Management. I'm looking at names on our presentation. I have spoken to at least a handful of you already, and thank you again for joining us. And many of you I haven't had the chance to yet. So usually I'm in the conversations when we're talking to a landlord who is potentially interested in hiring Marsha Reddick Real Estate to manage properties that they currently own. Whether you have properties in any one of our 5 states that you might be self-managing, maybe you're living in your home and you're thinking about moving out in the future and renting your property out. Maybe you have another property manager and you're just kind of looking around and seeing what else is out there. That's usually where I come into conversations. We do sell about 60 to 80 properties a month in our markets. We do the end-to-end upfront sales, and then of course the full, make-ready repairs, the leasing, and the long-term management. I'm not necessarily involved so much in that side, but many of you probably talk to our advisors and realtors who are helping you locate good properties. So let's focus in on the property management today. Sorry there, got a little delay. So I'd like to just start with Marsha Reddick Real Estate's management philosophy. And really, I think the majority of it is in number 1. And this was designed by our company many years ago before we started doing property management. A lot of our staff have owned rental properties for a long time. I've owned rental properties now for 13 years. We have staff members here that have owned rental properties for even longer than that. A very high percentage of our staff own rental properties. Marsha Reddick Real Estate manages about 15 properties for different staff members. So we eat real estate, we sleep, we breathe real estate, we walk the walk. And our philosophy is that we believe property managers should only make money when the landlord makes money and never make money when the landlord loses money. We view this as a partnership. So what I mean by that is, for example, we don't charge any fees during vacancy. There are some management companies that do have various fees or maybe even a monthly management fee during vacancy. But the main one, and what we're really going to drive home tonight, is that Marsha Reddick Real Estate does not make money off of maintenance and repairs. And that's a part of property management that a lot of people aren't really familiar with. There's a lot of different structures to a property management company. Some property management companies have a contracting company, and they may actually own that contracting company, and they might run a lot of their maintenance and repairs through their internal contracting company. But you have to take a step back and look at that for a second and say, well, if they're profiting from the maintenance and repairs and the landlord is losing money from maintenance and repairs, is that like an equally yoked? Is that an even relationship? Is that a symbiotic relationship? And the answer is clearly no. So we're going to explain how some companies like Marsha Reddick Real Estate are structured in a way that we're not actually making money from the maintenance and repairs, and we're only making our fee when the property is rented. The second is that we're really big on trust. We have some landlords that we have known for 20 years. We have many family members of different landlords that we're working with. For us, it's a matter of being very detail oriented, and from the very beginning, asking important questions so we understand every client's goals. And not everybody's goals are the same. So it's very important that we take a personal connection with each landlord, build that relationship with them in the beginning. And we can take as much time as needed to answer questions and visit the property and go back and forth until our landlord has made that decision. And I've noticed that I think a lot of other companies may not really go that far, might not really go that extra mile to have those in-depth conversations, ask questions, answer questions, visit the property, and spend as much time with the landlord as needed up front before they make a commitment. Lastly, we're investment-minded managers. This isn't just an asset, it's not just a house. For many of our clients, this is their livelihood, this is their retirement. And we know that those vacancies, those maintenance, those repairs, those tenant issues, those headaches will decrease the return that our landlords are receiving. So we're not just a property manager, we actually view ourselves as an asset manager to help our clients achieve the highest return with the least amount of risk, the least amount of vacancy, the least amount of maintenance, and risk is a big one. We want to alleviate or remove as much potential risk from our clients as possible. So what types of properties does Marsha Reddick Real Estate manage? Of the 2,000 properties we manage, I would say that maybe about 40 to 50% are single family homes, condos, townhomes. We have a very high percentage of 2 to 4 unit properties. So I'd say about another 30 or 40% of our properties are in the duplex, triplex, fourplex category. And then I'd say about another 20% are apartments. So again, we're residential, so we specialize in the about 2 unit up to about 25 unit apartment building. And if you happen to have a property that has more units, then we'd be happy to take an independent look and have a one-on-one conversation with you in more detail, as it's likely something that we can do if everything makes sense. So we also call ourselves or identify as a full service property manager. So what exactly does full service mean? Well, full service means that you can be anywhere in the world, and we do have landlords in over 20 different countries that own property in the states that we manage. You never have to visit the property. You should never have to make a significant change in your life while you're working with Marsha Reddick on your properties. We do handle all of the tenant communication, all of the tenant communication. And we're a consultant and an advisor for our landlord. When we lease a property, we sign the lease as Marsha Reddick Real Estate and the tenant. So we're putting our company's name as the landlord and signing that lease on behalf of the landlord for several reasons. One, we want to protect the privacy of our landlord. Two, the tenant is only going to have communication with Marsha Reddick. And of course, Marsha Reddick will be communicating with the landlord on a whole variety of different occasions. Of course, if we get a notice to vacate and we learn that the tenant is moving out, or if you have a vacancy and we're actively leasing your property and we get an approved application, you'll hear it from us immediately. If the tenant, for whatever reason, is late on rent, if there are any large repairs, there's going to be communication. But we can communicate in your fashion because we do have, again, we have landlords in many different countries: Turkey, Israel, China, India, Costa Rica, Canada, and many more on many different time zones. So we do have a software called Appfolio. That's what our tenants log into to submit maintenance requests and make their rent payments. And each landlord also gets to log into Appfolio to view their monthly statements, run reports for income and expenses, download any documents related to the property. We upload every single invoice that's ever done on the property, all the lease agreements, the move-in inspections, the annual inspections. So you basically have a full accounting file on your property that you can access from desktop or mobile. And that's a convenience that we offer not just to the landlord, but it's a very big convenience for the tenants. So I know a lot of landlords use Zelle or Venmo or take checks or, any kinds of what I would consider to be not really industry standard or very professional forms of payment. So, it gives off a lot more of an impression of a longstanding business when we work with tenants. And it's very important that we set that precedence up front. When they're renting a property from Marsha Reddick, they can see Marsha Reddick all over the internet, right? They can go on our website, they can see reviews on Marsha Reddick, they may even see other properties that we have for rent. Their precedence is I'm renting from a business that is probably going to hold me accountable, and they probably understand the laws better than I do. They may not think that, but we do. And that we're going to have good service and we're going to be responsive because our Zillow reviews, our Google reviews, our Yelp reviews are very important to us. And in fact, whenever we get a tenant, if we do have an upset tenant or a disgruntled tenant, or for whatever reason, they're not seeing us eye to eye, or we're having some type of trouble getting an agreement with them. If we ever do have a review, Marsha Reddick will be responding to that review. And I take pride in that, and our company takes pride in that. There's three sides to every story, and it's if you're going to read a review, you should read the response and read the positive reviews, the negative reviews, and everything in between. We want people to understand that we hold tenants accountable. We want our landlords to understand that we're going to enforce the lease. We are the bad guys. So obviously you see what's in front of you on your screen, but what you can't really see is the style of management and exactly how Marsha Reddick treats property management. We're very respectful and professional with our renters, but we hold them accountable. That means not necessarily playing favoritism. We have 2,000 renters. We can't make exceptions. There's laws against that. So although we're very professional, we're very responsive, we're cordial, we can't make exceptions. So, we are the bad guy for our landlords when it's necessary. So full service property management, we have our services for our landlords on the left, our services for the tenants in the middle, and exactly how we treat our properties on the right. And I just want to touch on our property inspections one more time, because when we lease a property and after we sign the lease, we're going to schedule our move-in inspection. And our move-in inspection strategically takes place 1 to 2 business days before the move-in. because we need to document the condition of that property when that tenant's moving into that property, because we're also going to do a move out inspection 1 to 2 business days after the move out. Our inspections are turned into reports with pictures and notes that the tenant and the landlord get copies of right away. So they get uploaded to the tenant and landlord portals. So there's no argument of the condition on move-in. Lastly, Marsha Reddick also does annual inspections. So when that 12-month lease comes to about 60 days before the expiration, we're going to schedule that annual inspection. Same thing, notes, pictures, turn it into a report. So just a little bit about how we treat each area of property management. What you'll see down there at the very bottom right with that maintenance logo and icon, we don't earn a penny off of maintenance. We use third-party professionals who are licensed and insured, that are prompt, courteous, efficient, round-the-clock availability, and also cost-effective. So that's a lot of different things. Thankfully, we will get multiple bids from different approved contractors if the repair calls for it. So we're not married to any one particular contractor. We're adding new contractors regularly. And every so often, we might offboard a contractor if we don't feel that they perform to our standard. So very important you realize that we're using local third-party independent contractors that are our approved and preferred vendors, but we're not married to any one particular vendor. So how much can you save? How much money can you save hiring a professional property manager? So these are all the things that Marsha Reddick focuses on. We focus on decreasing your vacancy in several different ways. During the leasing process, before that property goes on the market, our maintenance manager does a full walkthrough, very, very detailed walkthrough, tests appliances, checks the AC filters, checks the smoke alarms, looks at the cosmetics. We go through that property inside and out to make sure that it's ready to be placed on the market. That's step one, right? Because that property may or may not be ready to be placed on the market for rent. So once that we've deemed that it's ready, once any necessary repairs that we recommended are completed by our management team and by our vendors, immediately after that, our leasing agent visits the property, does their professional photos, and then the very next day it gets listed for rent. So depending on the market we're in, depending on the property type, it varies a little bit, but we're seeing the lowest days on market right now than we have in our existence. I think we're at the point now where about 95% of our properties are renting in under 30 days on the market. We look at that because we know that you're going to have to be paying a mortgage payment if you're buying a property, right? The month or second month following your close of escrow date. We want to decrease that vacancy because we realize that that's eating away at your return. So if we know there's something in that property that can be done to get it rented quicker, like placing a refrigerator, maybe putting window blinds, maybe shampooing the carpet, or any one of those things, we're going to recommend that. That way, when we go on the market and high quality prospective renters walk inside that property, they're not going to turn around and go elsewhere. They're going to apply, but the property has to be in the right condition in order for the top quality renters to apply. So that's first and foremost. We also do a rental analysis that Emily's going to discuss so that we can determine exactly how much that property should be listed in rent. We don't want to price it too low. We don't want to price it too high. So we're going to give you a report called a CMA, or rental analysis, that has all of the statistics and data and why we are recommending a certain amount. Emily, if you could go back, thank you. So how much does each day cost you? A nice, easy example is to take the monthly rent value of your property and divide by 30. That's how much money you're losing every single day that your property's vacant. That's a number that we all have our focus on. But at the same time, we're never going to bend in the quality. So there's a rhythm here that we know that our job in leasing is not just to lease the property in the shortest amount of time. It's to lease the property in the shortest amount of time to the highest quality renter for the most money that that property can be rented for. So we've got to combine all those things. We also know that if we're responsive with our renters, we take care of maintenance, that they're much more likelier to renew their lease at the end of the term, rather than to say, get me out of here. I cannot live in this property with the horrible management that I am experiencing. And probably half the country feels that way, half the renter country. It's something that I think a lot of renters struggle with. We don't want that to happen. We want them to feel like they are heard, feel like they can get a response, feel like they're taken care of. And those renters are likelier to renew their lease at the end of the term. We significantly decrease the liability for our owners because they're not involved, because we're submitting the forms on the proper state document. Because we are declining applicants that don't meet our approval, and we're doing it in the proper way, the legal way, according to the state law. We know the federal fair housing laws. We know the state rental property laws. We know the Consumer Privacy Act. We're familiar with these things. Not to mention that we're using licensed vendors for things that require a license, right? We are submitting notices of entry within the proper amount of time. We are refunding security deposits in the proper amount of time. We're keeping our landlords out of liability, and we're letting them focus on the careers and the fields that they specialize in. Less expense for repairs and emergencies. So if there's a repair needed, we might look at it and provide options rather than just saying this needs to happen. We might say, well, here's option 1 for repair, here's option 2 for replacement, here's option 3. So we're helping our landlords avoid deferred maintenance. We're giving them options. We're letting them have a certain amount of control in those repairs, but it's all designed to limit the liability. And in the middle of summer in Texas, when it's 100 degrees and that AC unit stops working or stops producing cold air, we know that we've got a time clock to fix that problem. So the vendors that we use, that we give lots of business to, are very responsive to us. Where it may be a lot harder for a landlord to call out a contractor in the middle of summer to fix an AC unit and have that done in less than a week. This all results in less tenant turnover, better quality renters, as I mentioned, not only stay longer, but tend to take better care of the home. And of course, reducing stress, headache, and time away from your work and play. So we've got a slide up here that has the markets that Marsha Reddick Real Estate does property management. So every market that has a green line around it, which is the majority of the page, minus 5 markets, Marsha Reddick does property management in-house. So in Southern California, as well as some parts of Northern California, Fort Myers, Florida, which is Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, Fort Myers. It's about an hour and a half south of Tampa, a little bit north of Naples. I think many of you are familiar with Fort Myers. It's a great market. Clarksville and Nashville, Tennessee, we have offices. And then we're in Austin, Texas, New Braunfels, Texas, and San Antonio. So the other ones, Phoenix, Boise, Indianapolis, Memphis, and Dallas, we do have referrals. So if there are any clients that own property in these markets that are looking for referral, we can refer you to our preferred property manager in that market. So I love this slide. It's one of my favorite slides in the whole presentation. These are recent photos of the majority of our staff in each office. So the top left, that's in front of our Newport Beach office. All these pictures were actually taken in December around the holidays. And then that's our Orange County and Los Angeles staff in front of our headquarters in Newport Beach. That picture on the top left has several members of our management team: Eric, our property manager; Nelson, our maintenance manager; Mariana, our tenant coordinator. We've got our property management accountants in there, several leasing agents, several realtors, And then we've also got some admin staff in there as well. On the top right, that is our San Antonio, New Braunfels, and Austin, Texas staff. We've got the same thing. We've got realtors, leasing agents, maintenance managers, maintenance coordinators, tenant coordinators. This is a team. I mean, to manage 2,000 properties, you've got to have a team that you're basically looking at right now, and a very, very efficient team that knows how to use the software, that knows how to communicate with vendors, and knows how to communicate with tenants and landlords. So very, very, very talented group of people. Down on the bottom left is our Nashville and Clarksville, Tennessee team. And on the bottom right, we have our Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, Florida team. So these are our brick and mortar offices. And then we also have some satellite offices in a couple locations that are a little bit more remote outside of the areas that we have our physical offices in. This is the team that makes it happen. And I hope many of you recognize these names or do connect with these individuals very soon. Which brings me to introduce you to our regional property manager, Emily Sanders. Emily has grown significantly with our company over the last 4 years. Emily did have a background in property management prior to working with Reddick. Emily is located in our San Antonio, Texas office as regional property manager. She manages each of our property managers and our property management teams in all of our locations. Emily is kind of at the epicenter, if you will, of our property management department, interacting and training a lot of our staff members, speaking one-on-one to a lot of our landlords. So it's very good to have Emily on the call with us. And Emily, if you could take it from here.
Yeah, thanks so much for the warm introduction, Scott. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm honored to be here with you all tonight and super excited to discuss property management and all the ins and outs of what a good property manager should do for you. So we do have a lot to cover tonight. So I just want to emphasize that if you have any questions or want us to reach out afterwards, just put your questions in the chat box and we will follow up with you after this call. All right, so what should a professional property manager do for you? So in short, a professional property manager should do everything A to Z for you. That would allow you to be hands-off and simply collect a rent check each month. If you're listening to this though, you probably have not been experiencing that. So let's touch on a few services that a professional PM will provide for you. So all of these points that we're about to go through, they will be discussed in more detail throughout the presentation, but let's just kind of high-level view, go through these. So a professional property manager will estimate all of your fix-up costs. So we're going to visit the property, we're going to give you a copy of the inspection report, we're going to work up estimates, we're going to get multiple estimates. Scott at the top of the call talked through the importance of maintenance. We're really going to zero in on that here tonight. We're going to get your property fixed up quickly. So we know how important it is to get your property turned and rent ready and leased in a timely manner. We're going to have our real estate agents run thorough rental market analysis. So we're going to go through the MLS. We're not going to go through Zillow or Realtor, as attractive as those sites are. So I'll also touch on that and show you an example here in a few slides. We're also going to advertise and show the property. So we're going to actually have our real estate agents visit the property and tour agents or prospects through the property. We're not just going to post it online and allow anybody to have access to the home. We're going to actually attend those showings. We're going to source and screen applications. I want to emphasize the screens applications part. So this is highlighted in red for a reason. If there's anything that the pandemic that we're still unfortunately in has taught us, it's how important it is thorough screening. We have to screen applicants with the utmost care. We do a 5-point screening check. We're not interested in just placing a warm body in a property. We want to place the highest quality tenant. So it's not a first come, first serve. It's not a, you have a pulse and a job so you can lease here. It's a, you are the highest qualified prospect for this property. We're going to get the tenants to sign a lease. So we're going to do that in a timely manner. So we do hold strict requirements on when an application is approved. We require the tenants to actually review and sign their lease within 48 hours. The goal there is to have very minimal turnaround time. So we really want to go ahead and secure properties as quickly as possible. We're going to collect the rent. So that goes without saying, but we're going to collect the rent online. 99.5% of our tenants are all set up online. We do have that little bit that still pay with checks, but there is a fee for that. So we really encourage all of our tenants to get online and make their payments. The reason for that is we want your payments to settle as quickly as possible for you. So our software actually has a 24-hour processing time, so business hours. So once the payment is received, within 24 business hours, those funds should settle, and we're able to disperse those quicker to you. We're going to perform ongoing property maintenance. So a good PM is not just going to be an order taker. A good property manager is not going to just say, oh, so-and-so placed a work order, time to respond to that. A good property manager is going to know what your home needs based on where it's located. So in Texas, for example, ongoing property maintenance is the AC systems. So every summer or gearing up for the summer, our maintenance team likes to check in with tenants, make sure they're changing filters, make sure we're scheduling preventative maintenance and doing any checks on the property for you. We're going to provide you with a monthly and a year-end statement. So Scott touched on this a little bit earlier, but we have full service accounting. We don't just have a property manager running your statements and publishing them each month. We have an entire accounting department. And the beauty of that is that your accounting at the end of the year is completely ready for you. There's not going to be any errors. You're going to get your full 1099, and it's going to be delivered to you on time electronically as well. And then conducting periodic inspections. So as Scott mentioned, we're going to do the move-in and the move-out inspections, but also we can do renewal inspections and property evaluations at any point upon request during the lease term. So if you're maybe 3 or 4 months into the tenant's lease and you want to make sure that they're taking good care of your property, you can call your property manager and say, hey, I would like for you to take a view of this property and let me know how things are going. So a good property manager will do all of these things for you without question. All right, so the PM life cycle. So what should a PM life cycle look like for a good property manager? So once your property is closed escrow or transferred over to a good property manager, there should be an initial property evaluation, whether the property is vacant or tenant occupied. So the property manager should go out to the property and fully inspect and photograph the interior and exterior of the property. This report would also be available to you upon completion. Full transparency is key here with good property managers. The next step would be to run a rental analysis for you. So to make sure that you understand the market in its full entirety, we're going to run an actual report that gives you all of the comps in the area. We run very tight requirements and criteria. A good property manager will not just throw a bunch of comps on the board for you. They're going to really tighten up the criteria. We're going to send you the management agreement and review that with you step by step, whatever questions you have. We're going to take care of all the onboarding for you. So it's very smooth and easy. It shouldn't be a clunky process for you to hire a property manager. You're trusting somebody with a huge investment, so you should be able to be onboarded in a smooth and timely manner. We're going to take care of all make-ready repairs, photos and advertising, showings, running all the applications, conducting the screening and background checks. We're going to get the lease signed. We're going to complete that move-in evaluation, which is the property inspection before the tenant moves in. And we're also going to conduct the ongoing maintenance and a mid-lease property evaluation. And then once a tenant vacates, we're going to complete the move-out inspection, and then the cycle starts all the way back over. All right, the rent-ready process. So during the rent-ready process, our team's ultimate goal is to get the property turned and ready for listing as soon as possible and at the best price for you. Ensuring that repairs or renovations are completed correctly, efficiently, and at a standard that's competitive with other homes in the area allows us to market the home to the highest quality tenants. And I can't stress how important it is, highest quality tenants. During this process, they're fully inspected by our maintenance team, treated for any hazards, deep cleaned, and any preventative maintenance, like I mentioned earlier with the AC checks in Texas, it's going to be ordered and completed. So like Scott said, we're really going to talk a lot about maintenance. So it's widely understood maintenance costs are a huge pain point. That's why a professional property management company will understand market costs for repairs. There's so many times that I'm on a call with a new client who is, very seasoned, or this is their first investment, and the first thing they want to talk through is maintenance. So it's very important that a professional property management company has good relationships with vendors of every trade. So you should have 3 to 5 quality vendors for every trade, so that you can maintain quality and accountability as well. A professional management company will also work really closely with realtors. So the realtor that's responsible for marketing and leasing your property. So the real estate agent and the property manager and the maintenance manager should work very closely during the rent ready process. There's a huge expectation that the agent knows and understands that prospective tenants want. So if an agent has been talking with tenants in the market for rentals and they know what kind of items they're wanting to see in these homes to maximize the amount of return on rent that we can get, those are very important conversations to have. So it's really important that your real estate agents and your property management teams work very closely together, and a professional property manager will ensure that. So make ready repairs. Here's an example on the screen of a checklist that we use internally on our rent ready repairs, but not just rent ready, but also just any inspection. We're checking everything. We're starting from the moment we pull up to the property and we exit the vehicle. We're taking pictures of every view of the exterior. We're walking you through like you are there. So documenting the entire exterior and documenting the entire interior. We follow this standard protocol so that we can ensure all items and components of a make ready are addressed and that there's no lack of quality or control in all of our inspections. So a good PM will photograph all of these items and more. They're going to test everything, make sure appliances are working well, make sure the AC is flipping on, the heater if we're in the winter time. It's super important that these reports are not only available to us, but to you as well, because it just goes back to building that trust and full transparency. So if something needs to be repaired, replaced, or upgraded during the time that we do these rent readies, we want you to be able to confirm this visually. We don't want to just tell you, hey, we'd like for you to update this refrigerator, or I think the flooring, the carpet needs to be replaced, without actually showing you proof that these items need to be upgraded or replaced. So it's very important that we document all of this and that we share it all with you as well. All right, so here is an example of a make-ready invoice. And the importance of showing you this invoice is to show you what we expect from our vendors. So we don't want a vendor to submit a $1,000 or $5,000 make-ready estimate, and it just is all clumped together. You don't know what you're paying for line by line. So we really coach our vendors to break everything up line by line so that you can see where your money is being spent and what it's being spent on. So again, fully transparent maintenance is crucial to our business, and we want you to feel comfortable and satisfied with what you're paying for, right? And so a good property manager would never hide this information from you, nor would they fluff these numbers for you either. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. One other thing on this slide that I think is very important to mention, having it broken up line by line like this also allows for us to be able to spot check and make sure that there's no egregious charges happening. So we're able to really say, okay, a $45 charge for a stain removal is very reasonable. Had that been $100, we could easily spot that and go back to the vendor and renegotiate that price for you. All right, so fully transparent maintenance. as I said a couple slides back, every investor that I've ever spoken to, whether they own multiple investments across the country and they've been doing their own property management for decades, or this is their very first investment property, they always have questions about maintenance, and for good reason. Maintenance is a part of owning anything. We all know that. Your car, your personal homes, everything is going to have to be repaired at some point. So anytime that you are dealing with large scale maintenance or even just reoccurring maintenance, everything should be fully transparent. So that goes back to the bid I just showed you, but also us publishing all the work orders. You know, we can post work orders every month for you as well. Right here on the screen, you'll see an example of a monthly statement where it shows our cash in, cash out. But the statement goes even further, and it's line by line, tells you exactly what you're spending your money on. There's no conflict of interest. So one of the biggest no-nos in property management is having in-house maintenance. If you are speaking with a property manager and they have in-house maintenance or they own their own maintenance company that they're going to use as a vendor, you should run very far away, very fast. In-house maintenance and property managers that use their own vendors, like their own personal company as a vendor, is a huge conflict of interest. So they are always going to be benefiting directly from any work that needs to be done at the property. So it's very important to remember that. A good property manager will work with multiple vendors for every trade. So like I said earlier, this keeps vendors honest in their pricing and their work. A good PM will have knowledge of repairs with intention to solve problems at the root and not just band-aid fix items. So we had a call recently, and an owner was having a really problem with reoccurring maintenance happening in the property. There was no actual inspection of the property. So our suggestion was, you know, once you onboard with us, we're going to inspect the property and find the root of these maintenance problems. Instead of just responding to maintenance requests as they're received, let's go in and talk to the tenant. Let's put eyes on the property. That's the way a good property manager will approach maintenance requests. It's super important, and I can't stress this enough, that if you are talking with property management companies, that if they offer lower management fees, they're recouping that cost somewhere else. And I really want to emphasize that if you're talking with a management company that their management fees are lower than the market, they're recouping those costs somewhere else. And you should really, really read the fine print there. They will always, 9 times out of 10, recoup what they're lowering their management fee on through upcharging maintenance coordination and maintenance costs. So it's very important that you think through the maintenance side of things when hiring a property manager. Additionally, on the maintenance side of things, a good PM will have 24-hour emergency maintenance. So 9 times out of 10, a tenant places a work order, an emergency, maybe a pipe bursts over the weekend or in the evening after the staff is off out of the office. If they don't have emergency on call, 24-hour on call, that is going to cause you more money in the long haul. So it's super important. A good property manager will always have an on-call, either a emergency dispatch vendor or a rotation schedule internally. All right, so we've talked about maintenance, so let's kind of shift focus a little bit and talk through the goals of leasing a rental property. So the biggest goal of leasing a rental property is always going to be to get you the highest rent, the best quality tenant in the shortest amount of time. So how does a good PM achieve this? Number one, we price the rentals appropriately. It's so important that rentals are not over marketed. Right now, we've seen such a shift in the rental market where prices just skyrocketed over the last 12 to 18 months. And we maximized obviously those rentals at that time, but it's super important that we don't always shoot for the moon, that we stay within reason. And the reason for that is we don't want your property to sit vacant on the market for 2, 3, 4 months because you're trying to make an extra $100 a month. A good property management company will be very transparent with that and give you the data and also give you that recommendation. We're going to assign dedicated leasing agents. So one of the beautiful things about our company is that we have real estate agents that their whole job is to lease properties. They don't have any other jobs outside of that. So their sole focus is to rent your property to the highest quality applicant. So a good property manager will have one person assigned to your rental property, and that leasing agent will update you every week and then again when the property is actually leased out. So you'll get continuous updates, continuous conversation, and have one point of contact. A good property manager will also thoroughly screen applications. In a couple slides, I'll have our application requirements and just talk through those. But screening an application manually and thoroughly is extremely important. One of the things that has happened in the last 18 months through this pandemic is a lot of screening softwares have removed the option of us seeing evictions, for example, to protect the tenants that were affected by the pandemic. So one way that we have been able to go around that as a good property management company is we take one extra step and we are calling the employers, we're verifying their employment, and we're also verifying rental verifications. We're not relying on word of mouth, we're not relying on a credit background check alone. We're calling and speaking to previous landlords. So a good property manager will take the time to thoroughly screen and process. Additionally, a good PM will conduct a move-in and a move-out inspection. So this has been touched on, but a thorough, full inspection of the interior and the exterior. At any point in time, you should know how your property looks and what it needs. And the only way to do that when you are 1,200 miles away or around the world is to have access to inspections. So a good property manager will always have that available for you. Okay. So how much will my property rent for? Like I said, the market went crazy the last 18 months, and everybody has really been capitalizing on increasing rents. But it's important that we do that within reason. So the important thing to consider when discussing rental pricing is to be realistic. So I often get questions all the time from clients who want me to look at the Zestimate or look at the realtor.com estimate. It's super important to emphasize that those are just that, they're estimates. Oftentimes, those properties, those websites are taking the total amount of active listings in that zip code and just dividing it by the number of listings. So they're taking the average of the active properties. Does not take into account the actual amenities, the size, the age, none of that into consideration when you're getting those estimates. So oftentimes you'll see, oh, maybe my property will rent for $1,800, $1,900 on Zillow. But in reality, the properties that are the exact same as your unit with the exact same amenities and the exact same age are really renting around the $1,500, $1,600 mark. So it's super important that every property manager is crystal clear with their client about what their property will rent for and what it will not rent for. So if we don't use Zillow and we don't use Realtor, how do we determine what your property will list for? We do that through the MLS. So the MLS is the multiple listing service. You have to be a licensed real estate agent to be a part of it. And it gives us access to all of the comparables in the market. What we do, and I'm going to show you on the next slide what our criteria looks like. But we run a rental market analysis, and we don't care too much about what's currently listed on the market. It's nice to see what other properties are being listed for, but where the meat and potatoes of it is on the rented comps. So we want to see, okay, what are these properties actually renting for? So when you get a market analysis from a professional property management company, you're seeing data based on what has rented near your comp. So that is the actual number. I want to give you an example. So to understand the cost of vacancy, it's important to look at it in a way that you probably wouldn't. When you want to list a property at the top price point or for something that maybe it's going to take a little bit longer, it's important to consider how much time you're actually losing. So to understand the cost of vacancy, there's an example on the screen for a $3,000 rental. So an overpriced unit will sit on the market for 30 or more days. And that's obviously going to cut into any profit that you would have made by just pricing it realistically in the first place. So if we take this $3,000 example, so $3,000 divided by 30, let's just say it's a 30-day month, that's $100 a day. So you're losing $100 every day that the property is vacant. This further equates to a $250 month loss over a 12-month lease. So oftentimes what I will do personally as we're an excellent property management company, but what we'll do is, we'll give the client figures, so if you want to list your property for $1,800 and it's sitting vacant for 2 months, you're going to lose $2,600. And we explain things that way. So it's very important that a property manager is just extremely transparent in all areas of managing your property. So right here, you're going to see an example of a rental market analysis. So on the screen, you can see a screenshot of our criteria. So when we run these rental market analysis on the MLS, we're really drilling down the criteria. We want to see what's active. We want to see what's pending. So who's getting applications at what price. But more importantly, we want to see the closed properties. So we want to see the last 30, 60, 90, all the way up to 180 days. Some other really important criteria that we want to always search by, we only want to look for properties in the exact same property type. If they're a duplex, we'll look at a duplex, a triplex, a quad. Usually those are in the same communities or near each other anyways. Distance, we only want to look at a max of 3 miles out from the subject property. And usually that alone will bring in a lot of comps for us to view, but so we can drill that down even more, down to about 1.5 miles to 2 miles. And that just goes back to why it's so important that we don't just pull comps on a zip code basis like Zillow and Realtor do, but by a complete custom criteria. We're also going to look at things like amenities. So does the property have a pool? If it doesn't, we don't want to look at comps that have pools. We don't want to look at comps that are on a waterfront or a canal if our comp does not have a waterfront or a canal. So we got to be very realistic and very strict on our criteria. Okay, so we've talked through the rental market analysis. We've talked through the importance of being very realistic in pricing and screening applications. So who does all of that for you? So we have, like I mentioned earlier, real estate agents whose sole job on our staff is to lease your property. So our leasing agents are going to, and any professional property management company will have leasing agents on staff who are fully responsible for preparing the listing, for arranging all photography. So we don't just go in and snap photos. We're going to open up all the blinds, turn on all the lights, schedule professional photography when necessary. Super important that your property is marketed in its best light, literally and figuratively. Our leasing agents are going to advertise and market the properties for you. So when they post through the MLS or post through our software at Folio, it actually syndicates out to all those major websites. This next one is they're actually going to pick up the phone. I know that's such a concept, but they are going to answer the phone for prospects. They're not going to just let the call go. They're not going to follow up tomorrow or maybe the next day. They're going to communicate. So we're really big on that. We're going to answer the call. We're going to follow up with an email. We're going to follow up with a text, anything that we need to do to capture any of these quality tenants. We're going to pre-screen the applicants. So we have a very thorough pre-screening process. We provide all of our agents with a minimum of 25 to 30 questions that they can ask prospects to make sure that Number one, we're not going out and showing the property just to every single person, but we're really making sure that our time is well spent as well, and we have quality prospects on the other end. We're going to conduct private showings. So we're not just going to put a lockbox on the property and give anybody the code. That's obviously a huge risk for a number of reasons. So our agents will attend the showings. And you're also going to, good property manager will provide weekly activity reports. So here at Marsha Reddick, Tuesday is our update day. So every Tuesday, our clients are updated by their real estate agent on the number of inquiries, showings, any applications that are received, and any approved application summaries. We take that a step further, and anytime there is an approved applicant, you're going to get an update regardless of if it's on that weekly update. We're going to do thorough applications as we've talked through, and then we're going to get that lease agreement signed within a timely manner. So 48 business hours is our average turnaround time for getting leases signed. All right, so application guidelines. So I mentioned earlier the importance of just very strenuous and intense application processing. I know it's attractive to say, I just want to get somebody in my property, please just approve whoever. I can tell you that over the last 2 years, 18 to 24 months of this pandemic, nothing has been more difficult than dealing with unqualified tenants. So we will take our full time processing these applications. It doesn't take more generally than 72 business hours for us to process applications. The longest part of that usually is the rental verification because we're relying on third party. So what do we look at when we are processing these applications? We are looking for a minimum of a 36-month positive history, rental history. So we're also looking for clear background and credit. We want a 600 minimum FICO score, so not a Credit Karma. And we're also looking for the tenants to make 3 times the monthly rent. All tenants have to they're required to carry their renter's insurance. And we're checking background, so felony as well. So here is just a snapshot of our screening process. So this is our 5-point screening. So background, criminal search, credit check, 600 FICO, income verification, 3 times the monthly rent, employment verification. So we're calling human resources for our applicants' jobs. We're reviewing pay stubs. We also require bank statements as well so we can double check the income. And then we're also checking rental history. So we're calling previous landlords, we're verifying good payment, and we're verifying good rental history. All right, so here is a snapshot of our website. So right here on our services, homes for rent, this is the number of available properties rather that we have right now. So as Scott mentioned, we have 2,000 properties under management and only 41 available properties. So that's about around 2% of the total portfolio that we have. That speaks to a couple things. It speaks to the current supply and demand. So there's a lot of demand for rentals right now, and there's not a lot available. We're averaging 4 to 5 sets of applications on every property. This is also speaking to how we effectively fill leases. So we are really hammering down on getting these leases signed once we have an approved tenant and getting these units off the market and getting tenants moved in. So how has the current market affected leasing and property management? So as I just mentioned, supply and demand. So we're seeing it in all areas of everything right now, not just rentals, but we have a nationwide shortage of rentals. It has to do with the lack of supply for rentals, but also the competitive home buying market. We're seeing lower days on market. So tenants are really like I said, we have 4 to 5 sets of applications on every property, but we also have applicants who are just applying and hoping that we can put them in a property once one becomes available. So these properties are flying off the shelves, literally. More tenants renewing leases at the end of their term instead of moving out. So this is also because of the competitive housing market. So tenants that are in place, they're not eager to vacate because they're going to be thrown into the wildfire that is trying to find another rental property, or fighting in the rental market to purchase a home. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here tonight with how a professional management company will take the guesswork out of managing your home, from ensuring proper maintenance and make-ready work is completed with high quality and low cost, to how we'll effectively manage and market and place high-quality tenants. So there's a ton more we could discuss, and I know Scott and I could talk about property management for hours. We do every day. I want to emphasize the chat box. So if you have anything that you'd like for us to contact you afterwards or any specific questions, please do utilize that. We'll be more than happy to connect with you. But I'd like to pass it back to Scott so he can discuss qualities to look for when hiring a property manager.
Thank you, Emily. That was really, really thorough and detailed. I'm sure I speak for everybody on here that was a lot of really helpful information. Thank you for covering all of those aspects. Emily, as you can see, is quite familiar with not just the external policies on how we handle tenants and landlords. She's also really familiar with our internal policies. And that's something that we're not really spending a lot of time on, all of our internal policies. But we are an organization that heavily uses technology and software. Our staff works off of the same software on a sort of a project management type of process, because as you can see, we've got maintenance managers visiting the property, leasing agents, then our maintenance manager comes back again. So you have to be organized, and you have to have not just good software, but a team that is all utilizing the software effectively. So thank you, Emily. So we got about 10 more minutes, so we should be ending just slightly over. If you guys are still with us here, thank you. I want to recap a few things. So we're looking at this wheel, this circle of different qualities to look for in a property manager. Before I actually just go through these, I want to kind of give you some high-level pointers here. So we've talked about the differences between good property managers and those that don't necessarily fall into this category. But the word property manager is a very loose term in our industry. And there are a lot of different types of people that consider themselves to be a property manager. So what I want to hit on really quick is why not to work with a realtor. And I know it's very common for self-managed landlords to hire a real estate agent. Could be any well-known brokerage or even not well-known brokerage, but not a property manager. So I'm referring to people that use a realtor to lease their properties. And you've got to really understand the motivations and the drive behind a realtor. Realtors make commissions off of home sales, and the fee to lease a property is typically, maybe a fraction of that. It could be, 5-10%, if that, of what a realtor makes on a home purchase. So realtors prioritize home sales, but it's not just that. It's not that their priority is not in leasing properties. It's that they don't have the staff, they don't have the software, they don't have the resources, they don't have a lot of the documentation and forms, they don't have the collections companies, they don't have the attorneys, but they just also don't have the experience and knowledge, right? They're not as in tune with the rental market because that's not what they do. They sell homes, and maybe in between that, every once in a while, they'll lease a property. I strongly encourage everybody on this call to never, ever make that mistake again. We would love to work with you, but whether or not we work with you, we recommend that you work with a company that does real estate sales and property management. I also would not recommend working with a company that only does property management, because they're a business, and a business needs to be profitable. Well, if you really understand our fee structure, then you will understand that it's not a very profitable component of our company, and it's not supposed to be. It's not designed that way. It's intentionally designed to not be a profit center of our business, because we know if it's not, we're going to have more and more landlords, more happy landlords, and landlords that stay with us for 3 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that's only going to grow our business in the long term. And we know if we do a good job managing a property, we're likelier to have that client buy or sell properties with us. So our focus is in the property management. Our motivation in this company is the property management. The sales will come. The sales will come if we do a good job on property management. If we don't nickel and dime our clients, if we provide good communication, if we're the right stewards of their property, then the sales will follow. Real estate companies that don't do property management, they can't provide any of the services that we're talking about, probably not one of them. And standalone property management companies are going to have much more aggressive pricing. They're probably going to require you to have to use their in-house vendors. They will be making money from maintenance and repairs. There will be a conflict of interest. So on the slide in front of you, we've got just a recap of various qualities that are necessary attributes for a good quality property manager. First and foremost, the importance of a strong website and software. So we use Appfolio. It's one of the top 5 most prominently used management softwares in the world. You've got Propertyware, Buildium, Appfolio, Yardi. There's a few more. We are very, very, very big on the use of our software and our technology. It allows us to have extreme documentation on our properties, to have every single detail of that property in our software, and we can easily pull it up with one click of a button. Our software allows us to evaluate our credit reports. Our software allows us to keep track of work orders. Our software allows us to communicate with our vendors. Our software allows us to keep a paper trail of everything. I can't count the number of times I've talked to a landlord that has a property manager that's for some reason not utilizing their own software. They're not providing the documentation. They're not using the software because obviously in order for a software to be effective, you got to have the right people using it. So importance of a strong website, strong software. Our website has all of the rental properties available. It's got the date it was posted. It's got the days on market. It's got all the leasing contacts information. How you view our company online is exactly how we utilize the software internally between our tenants and between our landlords. Okay, so going clockwise to the right, avoid conflicts of interest. Understand how the property manager makes money. That is so important. Whoever you're currently using for a property manager or whoever you're talking to, you have to understand all the ways they make money. And are those, any of them, a conflict of interest, like charging management fees during vacancy or making money from maintenance and repairs, and just nickel and diming for all these additional costs that we view as just part of their management. So yeah, you've got a lot of management companies that will try to give these teaser low management fees. And it works for some people that don't really review the management agreement or don't really understand what they're getting into. But if you really review the management agreement, you might find a lot of additional fees that turn that 5% into an 8% or into a 10% or into more than that. It's very easy for a property manager to put out a low management fee and for the landlord to go, great, well, I'm talking to this company, they're at 8%, this other company's at 7%, so I'm going to go with them because they're lower. What's so interesting is that a small difference, I mean like a 1 or maybe 2% difference in management fees, can mean an absolute world of difference in how they operate. A world of difference. And I made that mistake 13 years ago when I bought my first investment property. It was in Alabama. I've since sold it. I used a property manager. I had 2 options. I think it was one at 7% and one at 8%. So I didn't know anything. I was 20 something years old. I said, okay, great. I'll go with the cheaper option. A massive mistake. They had my property on the market for over 90 days until I finally said, I'm out, I'm canceling, and I'm hiring this other company at 8% that has an amazing website, great communication, large staff, and they took the time with me to answer my questions. So it is incredible how such a small difference in fees can mean a night or day difference in management. So cost versus service, I feel that the answer is probably both for most people. We want the best service for the best value. And that's really important to ask, what am I getting for that 50% leasing fee? What is included in the 8% management fee? What do you do to earn your $150 lease renewal fee? It's very important that you don't just take those fees and assume that they're going to do the leasing process the same, because 10 different property managers will do it 10 different ways. and very, very few take professional photos. Very, very few pay Zillow to place their properties for rent on Zillow, as we do. Very few will assign a dedicated leasing agent. I have talked to so many landlords that have worked with property managers that will just give the keys to prospective renters and say, bring it back when you're done seeing it. Unbelievable, unbelievable. I've talked to, landlords that had, property manager they weren't happy with. And they said, their leasing fee is just so low. And I explained to them it's so low because they're not doing professional photos. They're not paying for the homes to be on Zillow. They're not assigning a dedicated leasing agent. They're not doing private showings by appointment only. They're not doing all the screening and background checks that we're doing. They're not doing thorough move-in and move-out inspections. So you cannot assume that any management company does their processes the same as another. Very important to ask not just what are your fees, but what exactly are you doing to earn them? Okay, as we go down, responsiveness is absolutely key. And if you are interviewing a property manager and they're hard to get a hold of or they're not responsive, just keep moving on to another one, because that's what they're doing with your tenants or your potential tenants. Keep going to the left. I think it's great to read reviews on Yelp, on Google, also on Zillow. I think we're one of the few property managers that has a Zillow profile. Collectively, we have over 1,000 reviews online, over 1,000. Yes, we do keep track. So it's great to see what are other people saying about this company. Landlords, tenants, tenants don't on their own go online and write positive reviews. A lot of tenants, like I've said, they'll take their aggression out online. I think a good property manager is going to thoroughly respond to that review publicly. And lastly, what is their cancellation policy? Are they locking you into an agreement that you're going to have to pay aggressive fees to cancel if you're unhappy? Or are they allowing you to break your contract without paying any cancellation fees if you're not happy and your expectations aren't met? We love sharing our reviews. These are our Google pages. We also have a Yelp page for every office. As I mentioned, collectively, they add up to over 1,000 reviews. We've got Google and Yelp pages for each one of our markets. California, which is Los Angeles and LA, or Los Angeles and Orange County. We have a Google and Yelp page for San Antonio. We have one for Austin. We have one for Clarksville. And we also have one for Cape Coral, Florida. Very, very important for us to maintain those positive reviews and have our landlords also share their stories with us, or with the general public online as well. I want to leave you with a couple web addresses on our website, one of which is marshareddick.com/management. On this webpage, you can view all of our fees in each market. It's very simple. Thankfully, we've really simplified our fee structure as much as possible. So you can go on marshareddick.com/management and view our pricing in each market. The pricing does vary depending on the unit count. So the more units per building, generally the lower our fees are. So, if you've got a multi-unit or apartment, you'll be able to benefit from some economies of scale, and you'll see a slightly lower fee structure. We believe that we are worth our fees tenfold, and we like to have conversations so that our clients understand that up front. We never ask anybody to make a blind leap of faith with us. We can do one phone call, we can do 3, we can do 5, whatever it takes. We want our clients to see and know and understand the value up front, because we want to make sure that we're the right manager for you. The other page on, same website, marshareddick.com/management. We would like you guys to go on there. If you have properties that you're looking to have managed in any of our states, California, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida, then please go on, and if you could provide a little bit of detail, our business development manager will be following up with you within 24 hours to schedule a call and discuss your property. If you have properties that you're looking for a property manager and they're not in one of our markets, then we would recommend scheduling a consultation with one of our real estate advisors. That's also on our website, marshareddick.com/consultation. And our real estate advisors, who are also licensed realtors and work with our investors to help them map out and plan out their real estate investing goals, will be able to give you feedback and advice. We do have resources for those looking for management companies outside of our markets as well. Finally, Emily and I want to thank you and each one of you for being on our presentation. We had to significantly decrease the number of slides for this presentation, believe it or not. We easily could have spoken for another hour or two. We want to keep it concise so you guys can get back to your lives, and we hope to hear from each one of you. It's really nice having a one-on-one phone call to discuss your questions, your concerns, your property, for us to be able to ask you questions about your property or maybe your expectations or what you're looking for. And we love building those relationships because these are long-term relationships that we carry. We have landlords, as I said, that have over 20 units with us, landlords that we've been managing properties for many, many, many years. This is a very, very, very rewarding thing for us, especially when we're able to untangle knots. And Emily and I are no stranger to that. And our management team in general are no stranger to untangling knots, stabilizing properties, maybe relocating problem tenants, getting past due renters who are behind caught up. These are things that we don't just specialize in. These are things we love doing, and we do it regularly. There are a lot of property management companies, or anybody can collect rent from a great tenant. But when there's a dispute, when there's a repair, when there's a tenant who's behind in rent, that's when you know if you're working with a good property manager. So we hope to have the opportunity to speak to each one of you. I would love to encourage you to go on marshareddick.com/management to review our fees and submit an inquiry to have a consultation with our property management team. And with that, thank you, Emily. Thank you, folks, for being on our webinar presentation. We hope you learned something, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.